Beneath Michigan's waters and deep in its forests lie mysteries that refuse to be explained. At the bottom of Lake Michigan, divers found a hidden stone circle, like a forgotten Stonehenge, resting in silence. In Sanilac, strange carvings of people and animals cover a giant rock, their meaning still unknown. And in the Upper Peninsula, thousands of ancient copper pits tell of a civilization powerful enough to mine tons of metal, long before history recorded their names. Who built, carved, and mined these wonders? The truth remains hidden in time. Join me on this journey. Let's explore. The mystery of the Lake Michigan Stonehenge. In the cold, silent depths of Lake Michigan lies one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of North America. It is a story that blends archaeology, geology, and legend, and it begins not on land, but beneath the surface of the Great Lakes. Divers exploring the waters in 2007 stumbled upon a discovery that continues to ignite debates, raise questions, and stir imaginations. A formation of stones arranged in a circle, eerily reminiscent of Stonehenge in England. But this was not the rolling countryside of Europe. This was America's Midwest, and it was buried beneath the waves of one of the largest freshwater lakes on Earth. Some called it the Lake Michigan Stonehenge. Others dismissed it as nothing more than glacial debris. Yet for many, this formation hinted at something far older, far stranger, and far more important than anyone could have imagined. The story begins with a team of researchers led by Professor Mark Hawley, an underwater archaeologist from Northwestern Michigan College. They were conducting a routine survey of the lakebed using sonar, searching for shipwrecks. Lake Michigan is infamous for swallowing vessels. More than 1,500 shipwrecks are believed to rest within its depths, victims of storms, fog, or ice. But what Hawley's team encountered on the sonar screen that day was not the outline of a broken hull. Instead, they saw shapes that should not have been there. Large rocks arranged in deliberate patterns, aligned in a circle. When divers went down to investigate, they saw something even more astonishing. Among the rocks was a carving etched into the surface of one massive stone. It appeared to show the figure of an animal, a creature that looked strikingly similar to a mastodon, an elephant-like beast that went extinct over 10,000 years ago. At once, the implications became staggering. If the carving truly depicted a mastodon, then the stones must have been arranged before the end of the last ice age, when mastodons still roamed Michigan's forests. That would place the creation of this site at least 10,000 years ago, long before the Egyptian pyramids, long before Stonehenge itself, and long before mainstream historians believe organized human societies existed in the Great Lakes region. Suddenly, the mystery of Lake Michigan's depths became something much larger than a curious underwater rock formation. It became a possible window into an ancient, forgotten chapter of human history. The discovery spread quickly across news outlets and archaeology circles, igniting excitement and skepticism alike. Photos of the sonar scans and underwater rocks made headlines, and the story of a Stonehenge beneath Lake Michigan captured the imagination of the public. For those fascinated by ancient mysteries, it was evidence that North America's history might be far older and more complex than the textbooks admit. For skeptics, however, the entire thing was little more than a sensational misinterpretation. They argued that the stones were likely deposited by glaciers during the last ice age, when massive sheets of ice covered the Midwest and pushed rocks across the landscape. In their view, the circular arrangement was a coincidence, and the so-called carving of the mastodon was nothing more than natural weathering and cracks in the rock. But others were not so sure. The Great Lakes region has long been home to indigenous cultures whose traditions speak of ancient times and forgotten ancestors. For the Anishinaabe and other native peoples of Michigan, The land and waters are filled with sacred sites and stories that stretch back thousands of years. Could the Lake Michigan Stonehenge be a remnant of one of these ancient cultures, preserved beneath the waves when rising waters drowned their settlements? Archaeologists know that after the Ice Age, water levels in the Great Lakes rose dramatically, submerging valleys and entire landscapes. If people once lived on those lands, their artifacts and structures would now be underwater, waiting to be discovered. Consider also the mastodon carving. If authentic, it is not merely decoration. It suggests memory, culture, and perhaps ritual significance. The mastodon was not just an animal. It was a source of food, bone, and ivory for Ice Age hunters. To carve its likeness into stone may have been an act of reverence, a spiritual connection, or even a record of hunting success. If this carving truly exists, it ties the site to a period when humans lived alongside megafauna and relied on them for survival. Skeptics counter that underwater imaging can be misleading. Shadows, algae, and erosion can trick the human eye into seeing patterns that are not really there. This is known as pareidolia, the tendency to see familiar shapes like animals or faces in random objects. To them, the mastodon carving is nothing more than cracks and grooves enhanced by imagination. Without clear, verified photographs, the carving remains contested. And yet, the mystery lingers. Why would large stones be aligned in such a deliberate circle? In ancient cultures across the world, stone circles have played roles in astronomy, ritual, and social life. Stonehenge in England is the most famous. But stone circles exist in Africa, Europe, and Asia. If early peoples in Michigan constructed their own circle, it might have been used to track the sun, the stars, or the changing seasons. For hunter-gatherers, understanding seasonal cycles was essential for survival. A stone circle may have served as their calendar, marking the equinoxes or solstices, guiding their hunts and migrations. Other researchers suggest a ceremonial purpose. Circles are sacred shapes in many cultures, symbolizing unity, life, and eternity. Gathering around stones may have been a way to honor spirits, ancestors, or gods. If so, then the Lake Michigan Stonehenge could have been a sacred site for rituals, songs, and offerings, echoing across the ancient landscape before being swallowed by the waters. Theories stretch even further into the extraordinary. Some fringe researchers argue that the Great Lakes copper mines, which were worked thousands of years ago, may be linked to transoceanic visitors. They speculate that Bronze Age Europeans, or even more mysterious ancient seafarers, came to Michigan in search of copper, using the lakes as inland highways. If true, then perhaps these same travelers built stone circles just as they did in their homelands. Mainstream archaeology does not support this theory, but it remains popular among those who believe history holds more secrets than scholars admit. What is undeniable is the sheer scale of the Great Lakes themselves. These are not ordinary lakes. They are inland seas holding 20% of the world's fresh surface water. They are so vast that they generate storms like oceans, sink ships like oceans, and hide secrets like oceans. Beneath their waves lie ancient coastlines, drowned forests, and forgotten valleys. The Lake Michigan Stonehenge is not the only discovery hinting at a submerged past. In 2011, researchers found evidence of ancient hunting blinds and stone tools beneath Lake Huron, suggesting that people lived on dry land that is now underwater. These finds confirm that prehistoric humans did occupy areas now hidden beneath the Great Lakes. If it happened in Lake Huron, why not Lake Michigan? As divers continue to search the waters, the Lake Michigan Stonehenge remains elusive. Few have seen it directly, and access to the site is limited. Some suspect that authorities prefer it that way, avoiding controversy until more evidence can be gathered. Others think the mystery is left unsolved because it keeps the legend alive, attracting attention and curiosity. Yet the questions remain. Who placed those stones? Was the mastodon carving real or illusion? Was this a calendar, a ceremonial site, or simply a natural formation mistaken for human design? Each possibility leads to more questions. If it is natural, then why does it so closely resemble man-made circles from across the world? If it is man-made, then who were these ancient people capable of building such a structure thousands of years before history books acknowledge them? For now, the Lake Michigan Stonehenge rests in silence, its stones untouched, its secrets guarded by the cold, dark water. Perhaps one day, technology will allow us to study it in greater detail, to confirm or deny the theories. Until then, it remains a riddle at the bottom of America's Great Lakes, a place where science and mystery collide. The mystery of the Sanilac petroglyphs. Hidden deep within the forests of Michigan's Thumb region lies a slab of sandstone unlike any other. On its surface, carved with patience and precision centuries ago, are dozens of figures: men, animals, spirits, symbols, and strange geometric shapes. This place is known as the Sanilac petroglyphs, Michigan's largest collection of ancient rock carvings. And for over 1,000 years, they have watched silently as time passed, holding on to secrets that may never be fully revealed. The Sanilac petroglyphs are located in what is now the Sanilac Petroglyphs Historic State Park, near Cass City. The carvings are etched across a 50-foot rock outcrop, exposed by glaciers thousands of years ago, and later chosen by indigenous peoples as a canvas. Archaeologists believe most of the carvings were made between 400 and 1,400 years ago. But some researchers argue that parts of the site may be even older, dating back to the end of the last ice age. Regardless of their exact age, the petroglyphs stand as one of the most tangible links to Michigan's ancient human past. The images themselves are haunting. There are human-like figures with outstretched arms, animals that resemble birds and deer, abstract circles, handprints, and mysterious lines that seem to map out something we no longer understand. The most famous figure is called Evmadakowet, the bowman, a human holding what appears to be a bow and arrow. Scholars interpret him as a representation of the balance between human survival and respect for nature. Yet, like much of the site, this interpretation is debated. Native American oral traditions hold the petroglyphs as sacred. For the Anishinaabe people, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi, these carvings are not mere decorations, but teachings. Each line, each figure, is a story preserved in stone, a record of spiritual lessons, visions, and warnings passed down across generations. Some believe the petroglyphs were created during ceremonies, when shamans entered trance-like states and carved visions revealed by spirits. Others suggest they are messages for future generations, reminders of the delicate relationship between people, animals, and the land. But the deeper one looks, the more mysterious the site becomes. Among the carvings are shapes that seem almost out of place, spirals, grids, and lines that some researchers suggest may have astronomical meaning. Could the petroglyphs also have served as a kind of ancient calendar, mapping the cycles of the sun, moon, or stars? Certain carvings align with solstice and equinox directions, raising the possibility that this sandstone slab was more than a storytelling surface. Perhaps it was a ceremonial observatory, a sacred place where earth and sky met in stone. Not all the figures are peaceful. Some depict violent imagery, warriors, arrows, and possible representations of conflict. One carving shows a human figure with a bird-like head, holding a weapon, interpreted by some as a spirit of war. Another depicts a giant handprint pressed into the rock, its fingers spread wide. as if left behind by something greater than human. To many, these images are reminders that the petroglyphs may not simply be historical art, but windows into the supernatural beliefs of the people who carved them. Modern archaeologists study the petroglyphs with lasers, 3D scanning, and photography, trying to preserve details as the sandstone erodes. Each year, wind, rain, and even human touch wear away at the delicate carvings. Some are already so faint they're nearly invisible, while others stand out clearly under the right light. Without this technology, much of the site's mystery might already have been lost. Yet even with preservation, interpretation remains difficult. Unlike written records, petroglyphs are symbolic, open to multiple meanings, layered with cultural context that only those who made them could fully understand. This gap has left room for alternative theories. Some fringe researchers claim the Sanilac petroglyphs might not be entirely indigenous in origin. They point to similarities between certain geometric shapes here and rock carvings found thousands of miles away in Europe and Asia. Could there have been ancient contact between continents long before Columbus? Mainstream scholars dismiss this, insisting the carvings fit perfectly within native traditions. But the resemblance, at least visually, keeps the speculation alive. Others suggest the petroglyphs encode maps of migration, hunting routes, or even lost landscapes swallowed by the Great Lakes. A few carvings resemble mastodons or giant birds, animals that roamed the region at the end of the Ice Age. If these interpretations are correct, and some of the carvings may date back thousands of years earlier than scholars currently believe, into a time when humans hunted megafauna on the plains of a colder Michigan. That possibility would make the Sanilac petroglyphs one of the oldest symbolic sites in North America. The site's discovery story also adds to its aura. In 1881, a massive forest fire swept through the thumb of Michigan, clearing away trees, soil, and vegetation. In the aftermath, the sandstone outcrop was revealed, and on it, the petroglyphs, which had been hidden for centuries. It was as if the carvings chose their moment to reappear, emerging from the ashes like a voice from the past. Locals were astonished, and word of the carvings spread quickly, drawing curious onlookers and researchers alike. Today, the Sanilac petroglyphs remain a protected site, yet they still attract both visitors and debate. For Native communities, they remain a sacred place of teaching, where ceremonies are still held to honor the ancestors. For scientists, they are an archaeological treasure, a puzzle that continues to resist simple explanations. For mystery seekers, they are evidence of something deeper, a hint of forgotten knowledge, lost civilizations, or cosmic alignments hidden in plain sight. What is undeniable is the sense of presence one feels standing before them. Unlike artifacts kept in museums, the Sanilac petroglyphs exist in the open air, etched into living rock, in the same place where they were first carved. The forest surrounds them, birds call overhead, and the sandstone glows under the shifting sun. It is a place where past and present collide, where one can feel the echo of ancient hands pressing into stone. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all. Not simply what the carvings mean, but why humans across time and culture are compelled to leave their mark on the world. From the cave paintings of France to the hieroglyphs of Egypt, from Stonehenge to the Sanilac petroglyphs, humanity has always sought to carve memory into matter, to speak to the future through symbols. The Sanilac petroglyphs remind us that Michigan's ancient past is not silent. It still speaks, if only we listen. The years go by, more carvings will fade, but the mystery endures. Are they warnings, stories, maps, calendars, or visions from the spirit world? The truth may never be fully known, yet in that uncertainty lies their power. For every visitor who stands before them, every researcher who scans their surface, every storyteller who shares their legend, the petroglyphs continue their work, sparking wonder, inspiring questions, and bridging the distance between ancient and modern worlds. The mystery of Michigan's ancient copper mines, hidden within the rugged wilderness of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, lie some of the oldest and most mysterious mining sites in North America. Here, on the rocky shores of Isle Royale and throughout the Keweenaw Peninsula, ancient peoples once extracted copper directly from the earth, thousands of years before the arrival of Europeans, and long before the rise of civilizations in Egypt or Mesopotamia. These are not small deposits, nor were they minor operations. The sheer scale of copper extraction in prehistoric Michigan is staggering, and it raises profound questions about the technological skill, social organization, and intentions of the people who undertook this work. The story begins in what archaeologists call the Old Copper Complex, a term used to describe the earliest known prehistoric copper mining culture in North America. Radiocarbon dating suggests that humans were mining copper here as early as 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. They were not scraping surface deposits casually. They were digging shafts, chiseling bedrock, and hammering copper with stone tools to extract large quantities of metal. The copper was then fashioned into tools, weapons, and ornaments, everything from spear points to bracelets and knives. Remarkably, some of these artifacts have been found hundreds of miles away from the mines, indicating extensive trade networks that crisscrossed prehistoric North America. But how did these ancient miners accomplish such feats? Without metal tools, they had to rely on stone hammers and chisels, along with fire and water, to break apart the rock and extract copper. They dug deep shafts and pits, sometimes several meters wide and long, following veins of pure copper embedded in basalt and sandstone. Archaeologists studying these sites note that the miners had an extraordinary understanding of geology, knowing exactly where to dig and how to extract the copper without destroying it. The labor required to accomplish this is almost unimaginable given the technology available at the time. The mines themselves are mysterious in another sense. Many of the pits and trenches are located in remote areas, on rugged cliffs or islands far from modern settlements. Why did these early people choose such difficult locations? Some suggest that the copper was considered sacred, and that mining it was not merely an economic activity, but a spiritual one. Others propose that these sites were chosen for strategic reasons: proximity to copper veins, access to waterways for transport, or isolation for safety and secrecy. Whatever the reason, the effort required to extract and transport the copper demonstrates an impressive level of planning and communal labor. Artifacts recovered from the Old Copper Complex are equally enigmatic. Unlike copper smelted and alloyed in later civilizations, the Michigan copper was hammered into shape cold, without the use of heat. The resulting tools were surprisingly effective, durable, and often beautifully crafted. Some spear points and knives are so precisely made that modern metalworkers struggle to reproduce them. What is even more astonishing is the sheer volume of copper produced. Estimates suggest that early miners extracted tens of tons of pure copper, far more than necessary for local use. This raises a tantalizing question. For what purpose was so much copper needed? Some researchers have suggested that the Old Copper Complex may have been the foundation for long-distance trade networks. Copper artifacts have been found as far away as Illinois, Wisconsin, and even New York, indicating that the metal traveled great distances across prehistoric North America. This means that the people of Michigan were not isolated hunters and gatherers. They were part of a vast, interconnected culture capable of organizing labor, trading over long distances, and creating objects of both practical and ceremonial significance. Yet many mysteries remain. Who were the miners? How did they organize themselves? Did they live in permanent settlements near the mines? Or did they travel seasonally, returning only to dig and extract copper? Archaeologists have found evidence of both temporary campsites and more permanent habitation nearby, but the full picture remains elusive. The lack of written records leaves us with only the artifacts themselves, silent witnesses to a forgotten past. Another intriguing aspect of the old copper complex is the technology itself. Modern scientists and archaeologists have struggled to understand how these ancient people could remove large masses of copper with such primitive tools. Some of the largest copper nuggets weigh hundreds of pounds. To extract, shape, and transport them without metal tools would have required incredible skill, coordination, and knowledge of both the material and the environment. Experiments conducted by archaeologists using stone hammers have shown that it is possible, but it is painstaking work, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. There are also more speculative theories surrounding the copper mines. Some researchers suggest that Michigan copper may have been used for ceremonial or ritual purposes, far beyond its practical applications. The shiny, malleable metal would have been highly prized, perhaps even considered sacred. Others point to the possibility of contact with unknown ancient cultures or transoceanic visitors. Though these claims remain controversial and unsupported by mainstream archaeology, yet the idea persists in popular imagination, fueled by the scale and precision of the ancient mines and the mystery surrounding the people who built them. The mines themselves tell stories that go beyond the artifacts. Walking among the deep pits, terraces, and trenches, one can sense the presence of generations of workers who dedicated their lives to extracting this precious metal. Each strike of a stone hammer, each carefully removed nugget, represents a human effort that has survived thousands of years. Unlike a simple tool or a buried settlement, the mines themselves are massive, tangible evidence of a culture that existed long before modern history began to record human activity. Today, much of the old copper complex is preserved as part of national and state parks, with Isle Royale and the Keweenaw Peninsula offering a glimpse into this ancient world. Museums in Michigan display artifacts, photographs, and maps, allowing visitors to imagine the scale and sophistication of these early mining operations. Aerial and drone photography has brought the sites to life, showing patterns and structures invisible from the ground. Photographs of the large copper nuggets, stone tools, and pit formations help modern audiences visualize the human effort and ingenuity behind these ancient works. Despite the attention, many questions remain unanswered. Why did this culture suddenly disappear? Why did copper mining in the region decline after thousands of years of activity? Some scholars suggest environmental changes, resource depletion, or shifts in social structures may have caused the decline. Others believe that the knowledge of large-scale copper mining may have been lost, leaving behind only traces in the form of pits, trenches, and scattered artifacts. The old copper complex is more than a historical curiosity. It is a window into human creativity, endurance, and mystery. It challenges our understanding of prehistoric North America, showing that early peoples were capable of sophisticated engineering, long-distance trade, and cultural expression far earlier than commonly assumed. It reminds us that the past is never fully silent, that even buried in rock, hidden on islands, or submerged beneath water, human activity leaves echoes that survive millennia. In the end, the mystery of Michigan's ancient copper mines is not only about who dug the copper or how they did it. It is about human ingenuity, the drive to manipulate nature, and the desire to create, trade, and communicate across space and time. Every artifact, every pit, every stone tool is a message from the past, waiting for modern eyes to read it, interpret it, and marvel at the intelligence, determination, and spirit of the people who lived in Michigan thousands of years ago. Even today, as visitors hike through the rugged landscapes of Isle Royale or the Keweenaw Peninsula, they are walking among the ghosts of ancient miners. They are seeing the remnants of a culture that once thrived, labored, and dreamed in a world very different from our own. And though we may never know all the answers, the copper mines continue to speak, whispering the secrets of Michigan's ancient past to anyone willing to listen.